You've probably heard of the word oxymoron, which is a phrase that doesn't actually make a whole lot of sense. We've heard of government intelligence and things like that. Well, one of them, I believe, is the word common sense. If sense means to respond to life in ways that fit reality and are most likely to work, this is not a very common thing. And so first we have to understand what healthy looks like, because the plain fact is you're not going to find good models of it in the world around you. They don't teach it in home economics at school. You're not going to learn it by watching your friends. In my observation of the world, perhaps 5% respond in ways that actually make sense. So if it's normal to have these less healthy responses to life, you might wonder why everybody doesn't wind up in a psychiatrist's office. Well, the truth is most people handle the stress of life by burying their head in the sand, by not caring, by not seeing, and by blaming everybody else for their own problems. Folks that wind up watching this video and are seeking a healthier response to life tend to be people who see the problems around them, people who care, people who try real hard, but there's something about the way they respond that causes them trouble. First, though, we've got to understand the way it should work. There's a person who had good common sense. In fact, he's known for his sense in general, being a rather intelligent individual, Albert Einstein. And he says, when you go through life, things happen, you perceive that, and you are going to react. Otherwise, you're dead. Then you will get a response partly influenced by how you reacted. And that response isn't always... Yeah, let me...
Just start over and you can edit that out.
And if you just want to write the name of the speech at the top too.
Okay.
So start with your little Albert Einstein riff. Just have to start further over to the left.
Yeah.
Or right smaller. It's funny that watching this, you can see it coming.
Yeah.
Everybody watching it's going, uh-oh.
Okay. So the common sense part will be okay. We'll start there. A person who is known for his sense, and I believe for his common sense and wisdom, was Albert Einstein. And you recall that famous quote where he says, if you come at life with the same response that you've had in the past, and expect a different result, you must be crazy. So, however, it's normal, in my opinion, to be crazy. When people come in, you ask 10,000 people, which is easier? Change your past, change your boss, get your family to admit that they're messed up, get the world to change, or change how you react to it. They'll all agree the only thing you can change is your response. And they complain about being depressed and anxious, but they kind of hope that that's just sort of an accident, like catching the flu. What they don't want is to do the one thing that they agree they can change, and that with help. And that is how they respond. Now, when life occurs, your first job is to simply be aware. There's a big movement now about being mindful and present. But 2,000 years ago, a wise teacher said, take no thought for tomorrow. Don't even worry about food and clothing. God knows you need that. You got enough stuff to deal with today. Focus on that. Don't wallow in the past. We need to be aware. We need to be mindful. We need to be present. And then notice what's going on. That's just facts. The first part of response is to notice. Now you have to add emotions to that, feelings. Sorry, there are no Vulcan civilizations in the universe. There's no way anyone would build a civilization if they didn't care less. So there's a part of our brain called the amygdala that adds fear and anxiety and passion and emotion to our response. But just a blast of emotion isn't going to do you much good if it then fades and you say, what was that? You've got to continue to care until you've taken care of the piece of life that you're addressing. So this pulse of emotion is thrown into a circle of nerves that helps you learn, pay attention, focus, continue to care. It's called the hippocampus and just goes around in a circle, blasts back into the amygdala, around and around it goes until you turn it off. Now there's this interesting thing. I've got all sorts of folks I know who care very much. They're angry, they're sad, they're fearful, but they do nothing. Well, why? Well, you have to have more than just emotions, you have to have drive. And drive, you have to have a sense that you are worthwhile. Otherwise, I know people feel so worthless that when life dumps on them, they just sit and take it because they think it's what they deserve. You have to feel that you are competent, that if you do the little you can, it's worth doing. You have to feel that there is hope. And you have to feel that there are other decent people in the world who will come alongside. Lacking these convictions, why bother to try? And there's actually another part of our brain, the hypothalamus, that says, hey, let's do something. Now, this whole thing's called the limbic system, and it's awesome. It's like the fire in your belly. It's what drives you down the track. When I was a young boy, I grew up in India, and they had these steam engines pulling the trains. And I'd go and stand up next to the steam engine, big monster. One time, the engineer actually allowed me to ride on the steam engine, shove in the coal, and pull the whistle. I was 10. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. It was awesome. But I noticed one thing is every once in a while, they'd blast steam out the side because that fire is still burning in there, and it was going to blow that engine up. And it wasn't doing any good because it wasn't pushing it down the track. That fire has to be contained and directed before it's of any use. The same is true with this passion. This part of your brain is brilliant. I mean, you've heard of people working on artificial intelligence. When's the last time you heard of somebody working on artificial angry or artificial happy? You know, that's a more complex thing. And this puts the right feeling, but it puts 100, what's going on? It's not writing. It's not writing. Oh. Okay.
The computer probably just started lagging.
Okay. It puts 100% on everything. Babies are born with the limbic system in full fire. You know, they see mama's face and within a couple of days they think, wow, it's that feeding face. Oh, are we happy, happy? Then feeding face stops to talk to Aunt Sue. Oh, well, where's the good mother? We don't want this horrible mother that doesn't feed us. Then mom comes and they're happy again. Mom leaves the room. Oh, we're going to die. Feeding face is left. Their feelings are just all over the place. If you've ever raised kids, you know you spend an enormous amount of energy teaching them to calm down, pipe down, slow down. Don't kill your brother. Mama going to kiss the boo-boo. You aren't going to die. We train this to calm down. So this sends a signal up to the cortex, where the fancy thinking occurs. I think I like whiteboards better. Come on. Am I too far to the right?
I think the computer's just lagging.
We actually can tell what it is.
You want to try doing it again? Also change color.
Huh?
See, yeah, the computer's just lagging.
I want a whiteboard. Stupid thing.
Just give it a little bit, and yeah, you might want to give it another 10 seconds just to recover, and then
Is it going to go down every couple minutes?
I'm not sure. You might just want to
Okay.
just write a little bit slower and just take your time on the letters.
Okay. Okay, so it sends it up to the cortex. Because this is more complicated. We are always trying to calm down our emotions. We use things like Valium, like alcohol or marijuana, and we just squash it out. The problem is that doesn't help you face life better. When the cortex comes into play, it decides the exact amount of calming, and I remember one patient of mine was standing in Chicago with his good friend, and they were in the wrong part of the city. They were young black males, and people from another gang drove by, started shooting at them. He was terrified, but he calmed down from 100% to maybe 98% and had a presence of mind to roll into the ditch. His friend did not. He was frozen like a deer in the headlamps and was killed. Even in the worst setting, we need to calm down in order to handle it. But the cortex can decide, it's no big deal, shut it out, or maybe 60%. It's very precise. And the way it does that is it sends a command down to the end of a nerve that contains serotonin in it. And it dumps out enough serotonin to attach 1,000 molecules in 1,000th of a second to the responder nerve, and then carries out the calming effect. Now, that's a lot to attach in a short period of time. So the way it does that, it dumps out a lot more than you need, 100,000 molecules, and gets the job done real fast and efficient. Now, I used to ask people how much was wasted. They'd tell me 90,000. Actually, 99,000 wasted molecules. Now, you need to know that serotonin is an object. It has to be manufactured. If you use it up too fast, you can't function. You don't want to waste 99,000 molecules every time. So there's a reuptake pump that yanks those back into the first nerve, and you're ready to go again. Fast, furious, and conservative. Brilliant mind designed this. So now it gets you to chill. But what else do you need to do? I ask people, okay, you've got the right feeling and drive and the right amount. Now what? And they think and say, well, you got to do something. But I suggest you do something else first. If you feel guilty, for example, and you jump in to apologize and you say, well, I'm sorry for whatever it is I did to make you mad. This is not going to work, because that's not an apology. That's actually an attack. You're saying you're so wonderful, you're willing to apologize for things too small for most people to detect. You better do this other thing next. You better think, what actually works? What does a good apology sound like? So the cortex then sends a command down to another nerve that has norepinephrine in it. Dump out norepinephrine helps you concentrate, analyze, plan, gather resources, pay attention, and prioritize. Now it's time to act. So you send another command down, and you got dopamine. Dopamine's wonderful stuff. It makes you leap out of bed in the morning screaming, carpe diem. And as you go through the day, you think, man, this is so much fun, I can hardly stand it. At the end of the day, you think, I'm a good guy, I did my part. And then you think, hey, why don't I do that again tomorrow? That was fun. Of course, I'm describing somebody on crack cocaine. But the rest of us have a little of that anyhow. Dopamine makes you want to do. Now, in order to have the energy to do, you dump out a little adrenaline. It's kind of like a bunch of caffeine. And you dump out some cortisol to handle the stress. Now, you've done all you can, best you can with the tools. There's nothing else to do. You got one more job. What is it? Think with me. This thing is still going round and round and round to make sure you take care of business. And every time it does, you use up a little more serotonin, a little more norepinephrine, a little more dopamine, dump out a little more adrenaline and cortisol. You can't just keep doing that without wearing yourself out. So you need to let it go. You need to drop it. That is, turn this thing off. Now I'm talking about if what you're focusing on makes you angry or anxious or sad. But what if what you're focusing on makes you happy and feel worthwhile and hopeful? Then you have a slightly different, you interact with it, think it through, seize a hold of it. Now you've done all you can in regards to this positive. You need to savor it. And then you need to return to life and grab a hold of the next piece of life as it flows by. I've described a healthy response to life. The problem is, as we'll talk in the next section, is that this is not how most people respond to life. So we will now move on to talking about how does it go wrong.